The bravest thing you will ever do has nothing to do with war, failure, or loss. It's the moment you stop explaining yourself. Not the dramatic moment, not the speech, not the declaration. Just the quiet, private instant when you decide that the life waiting inside you is worth more than the approval surrounding you. Most people never find that moment. They spend their whole lives one conversation away from finally becoming themselves, always waiting for someone to give them permission. You've felt it. That particular kind of exhaustion that doesn't show up in your body. It lives somewhere behind your eyes. The weariness of performing a version of yourself that almost fits. The slow, grinding cost of editing your instincts before they leave your mouth. Trimming your ambitions to match the ceiling of what others think is reasonable. Laughing at things that don't land as funny. Agreeing when you don't agree. Becoming fluent in a language that was never yours. It starts small. One compromise, then another. And none of them feel like betrayals in the moment. They feel like tact, like maturity, like being easy to be around. But there comes a day, and maybe you've already had it, or maybe it's coming, when you look up and realize the person everyone likes isn't quite you. And the distance between who you are and who you've been presenting is measurable now. You can feel the gap. It has weight. That's not a crisis. That's a signal. Picture someone. Let's call her Marin, 26 years old, sitting in the passenger seat of her own life. She did everything right by every standard given to her, studied the approved subjects, took the appropriate job, wore the appropriate expression at the appropriate moments. She was, by most definitions, succeeding. But every Sunday evening there was a specific dread that settled into her chest. Not anxiety about Monday exactly, something more precise than that, a grief, almost. For the version of herself she kept deferring, the one with the unconventional idea, the strange passion, the path that didn't make sense on paper. She told herself she'd pursue it later, after the savings accumulated, after the relationship stabilized, after people stopped needing things from her. Later is a place people go to die slowly. One afternoon, Marin was sitting in a glass-walled meeting room, listening to someone explain why her instinct about a project was wrong, and she watched herself nod. She watched her own face rearrange into agreement she didn't feel. And in that moment, something crystallized. The room wasn't the problem. The job wasn't the problem. The nodding wasn't even the problem. The problem was that she had become so good at adapting that she could no longer locate the thing she was adapting away from. The original signal was still there. She could sense it, faint as a frequency just outside hearing range. But she had spent years building walls of practicality around it, until it was barely a whisper. She drove home that evening and sat in her car in the driveway for 23 minutes. Not crying, not thinking exactly, just arriving, finally, fully, to the question she'd been postponing. What would you do if you stopped asking for permission? Here's what nobody ever tells you about the path that belongs only to you. It doesn't feel like freedom at first. It feels like exposure. When you stop performing the acceptable version of yourself, there's no applause. There's no dramatic orchestral swell. There's just you, without the costume you forgot you were wearing, standing in a kind of uncomfortable openness. Because here's the paradox. The crowd that you were afraid to disappoint, they were never watching as closely as you thought. The judgment you braced for, most of it was a projection of your own internalized standards dressed up as other people's opinions. We build elaborate prisons out of imagined criticism. But here's the deeper truth, the one that only reveals itself on the other side of the choice. The loneliness of walking your own path is survivable. The loneliness of betraying it is not. There is a difference between being alone and being abandoned. When you walk your own road, you are alone by choice, by direction, by design. The solitude has texture. It has meaning. It is the silence of a craftsperson at work, not the silence of someone who has been forgotten. The people who choose conformity for safety discover something terrible. The safety isn't real. You can follow every rule, meet every expectation, sand down every edge. and life will still bring you to your knees. The difference is that when it does, you will not have yourself to return to. You will have only the habits of accommodation. The person who walked their own road, who paid the price of difference, at least when the storm comes, they know who they are. That knowledge is not small. That is the only shelter that holds. Let's be honest about what this costs, because anyone who tells you this path is simply a mad or of mindset has never actually walked it. You will lose relationships, not all of them, but some, and the ones you lose won't always be the ones you expected. Sometimes the people who said they loved you unconditionally had conditions. They just never stated them because they never imagined you'd test them. You will lose time. The version of you that chooses authenticity does not get a fast start. There is no shortcut through the years of building something true from scratch. You will watch people who chose the easier path advance along the visible track while your track is still being laid. You will lose certainty. The crowd offers something seductive, clarity. If you just do what's expected, the path is marked. There are signs. There are milestones everyone recognizes. When you leave the crowd, you are navigating by instinct and by values and by a kind of stubborn interior knowing that other people can't validate for you. And there will be days, I won't lie to you, there will be days when that feels like madness. When you wonder if the whole thing is arrogance dressed up as authenticity. When you suspect that maybe the crowd was right and you are just someone who couldn't fit in and built a philosophy around it. Those days are not proof that you're wrong. Those days are part of the price. They are where most people turn back, and they are exactly where the real decision happens. Not in the grand moments, in the small, grinding, uncertain ones. This is where the courage lives, not in the leap, in the staying. The courage to walk alone isn't about being fearless. It never was. It's the willingness to be afraid and continue, to feel the pull of belonging, that ancient biological need to be accepted by the group, and to choose something harder. Not because you don't want connection, but because you've learned the difference between connection and disappearance, between being loved and being consumed, between belonging somewhere and belonging to yourself. Maren eventually quit the job, not dramatically, not with a speech. She just stopped performing her way through it and let the truth be visible, and the truth did the rest. That's often how it works. Not a revolution, a revelation, slow and undeniable. The road she walks now is harder in the ways that are real and easier in the ways that matter. She doesn't drag herself out of bed anymore, fighting the weight of her own inauthenticity. The exhaustion behind her eyes is gone, not because life got simpler, because she stopped being in conflict with herself. That's what's available on the other side of this. Not ease, not applause, not the guarantee of success by any measurable standard. Just the radical, quiet, extraordinary relief of being the same person in every room. You already know if this is speaking to you. You've known for a while. The only question left is whether you'll have the courage that can't be borrowed, can't be given, and can't be postponed forever. Walk, even if you walk alone. Especially then,